Hey guys, tonight we're stepping back in time, way back, to a world that makes your worst no Wi-Fi nightmare look like a spa day. Imagine the dusty, bustling streets of ancient Rome, the scent of garum that fermented fish sauce hanging heavy in the air, mingling with the sweat of legionaries and the smoke from 1,000 hearths. You're a child here, not the pampered, screen-addicted little emperor you might be today. Oh no, you're about to discover a reality so utterly, unequivocally brutal. You'll be thanking your lucky stars for indoor plumbing and a school system that doesn't involve being beaten with a stick. Seriously, you probably wouldn't last a week. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And, hey, drop your current location and time in the comments. It's always cool to see where everyone's tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You open your eyes, and the world is a dizzying swirl of rough-hewn stone and muted colors. This isn't the soft glow of a nightlight, it's the flickering flame of an oil lamp, casting dancing shadows on plastered walls. You're small, so small, and the voices around you are a cacophony of Latin, sharp and unfamiliar. This is your reality now. You are a child in ancient Rome, and from the very first breath, you understand, instinctively, that survival is not a given. It's a constant negotiation, a tightrope walk over a chasm of indifference and harsh realities. Think about it. No sterile hospital room, no gentle nurses, no pediatrician waiting to give you a clean bill of health. You're born onto a straw mat, perhaps in a cramped apartment building, called an insula, teeming with other families, or maybe in the more spacious, but still drafty, confines of a domus. Your very first moments are a gamble. Will you cry loud enough? Will you seem strong? Because in this world, weakness is a luxury no one, especially not a newborn, can afford. Your existence, fragile as it is, rests entirely on the whim of your paterfamilias, your father. This isn't some quaint tradition. It's the absolute law. When you are born, you are placed on the ground before him. He has the power, absolute and unquestionable, to pick you up and acknowledge you as his own, or to turn away, leaving you to be exposed, abandoned to the elements, to the mercy of strangers, or, more often than not, to death. It's a stark, chilling reality, a silent, primal judgment passed within moments of your arrival. Imagine the hushed tension in the room, the collective breath held, as your tiny fate hangs in the balance. There's no appeal, no social services, no safety net, just the stark choice of one man. If you are picked up, a small, almost imperceptible sigh of relief ripples through the small gathering. You have been acknowledged. You have a chance. But this acceptance isn't a ticket to an easy life. It's merely the first step onto a path fraught with perils. Your early days are a battle against the unseen. Disease, rampant and merciless, lurks in every shadow. The concept of hygiene, as you understand it, is practically non-existent. Waste flows through open gutters. Clean water is a luxury, and the air is thick with the smells of a densely populated pre-industrial city. Infant mortality rates are staggeringly high. Many of your tiny contemporaries, those who were picked up and accepted, will not see their first birthday, let alone their fifth. You are a statistical anomaly, a testament to sheer blind luck, or perhaps a surprising resilience built into your very being. Your earliest memories aren't of plush toys or colorful picture books. They're of rough wool against your skin, the rhythmic creak of a wooden cradle, and the constant murmur of voices. Always active, always working. Your mother, if you are fortunate enough to have her alive and well, breastfeeds you, sometimes for years. a practice that's as much about nutrition as it is about birth control in a world where large families are both a blessing and a burden. She might hum lullabies, ancient and full of tales of gods and heroes, or perhaps simple folk songs about the toil of daily life. As you grow, your world expands, but not in the way a modern child's would. There are no safe, enclosed playgrounds. Your play space is the street, the bustling forum, the cramped courtyard. You learn to navigate around vendors hawking their wares, carts rumbling by, and adults hurrying about their business. Curiosity is a double-edged sword. Explore too far, and you might get lost in the labyrinthine alleys. Wander into the wrong part of town, and danger, in various forms, awaits. Your clothes are simple, practical, and few. A basic tunic, perhaps belted at the waist, is your uniform. Shoes, if you have them, are rudimentary sandals, offering little protection from the sharp stones and refuse underfoot. You learn quickly that comfort is a foreign concept. Warmth in winter means huddling near a brazier, the smoke stinging your eyes. Coolness in summer means seeking the scant shade of an awning or the cool interior of a stone building, battling the ever-present flies. Discipline is swift and often physical. Crying is not coddled. It's often met with a stern word. Or worse, a quick cuff to the ear. Respect for elders is paramount, an unspoken law ingrained from your earliest moments. You learn to be seen and not heard, to obey without question. There are no timeouts, no lengthy discussions about feelings. There is only obedience, conformity, and the clear understanding of your place in the rigid social hierarchy of Roman society. Even your toys, if you are lucky enough to have them, are simple, terracotta dolls, wooden animals, perhaps a set of knucklebones for a game of dice. These aren't mass-produced plastic wonders. They are handmade, often by family members, and treasured not just for play, but sometimes as symbolic objects, perhaps offered to household gods. Your imagination, however, is boundless. You play games of soldiers, mimicking the legions you see marching through the city, or pretend to be a senator, making grand pronouncements in a makeshift forum. But even in play, there's an undercurrent of purpose, of preparing you for the adult world that looms large and ever closer. The stories you hear aren't whimsical fairy tales designed to lull you into sweet dreams. They are often myths of gods and goddesses, powerful and capricious, demanding reverence and sacrifice. You hear tales of brave heroes and tragic figures, stories that instill values of courage, duty, and pietas, devotion to family, state, and gods. These narratives aren't just entertainment, they are moral lessons, shaping your understanding of right and wrong, of what it means to be Roman. Your senses are constantly bombarded. The clang of the blacksmith's hammer, the shouts of vendors in the market, the distant roar of the crowd from the Colosseum if you are in Rome itself, or perhaps a local amphitheater. The smell of baking bread from a pistrinum, the acrid odor of the public latrines, the sweet scent of incense from a temple. You become acutely aware of your surroundings, your survival depending on your ability to process this constant sensory input and react accordingly. One fascinating detail you might notice, if you pay close enough attention, is the bulla. If you are a freeborn boy, you wear this small, round locket around your neck. It's made of gold, bronze, or even leather, depending on your family's status, and it contains an amulet or charm meant to ward off evil spirits and protect you from harm. It's a tangible symbol of your identity, a mark of your freedom, and a constant reminder of the unseen dangers that your parents believe lurk just beyond the veil of everyday life. You'll wear it until you come of age, when it's ceremoniously removed and dedicated to the household gods, marking your transition into adulthood. Historians still debate whether the bulla was primarily a protective charm or also served as a subtle social marker, easily identifying freeborn children from others. You might see older children, not much older than yourself, already working, carrying water, running errands, helping in a shop. There's no expectation of a lengthy, carefree childhood. Responsibility descends early, a heavy cloak draped over small shoulders. You understand, without being told, that your value is tied to your contribution, to your ability to lighten the burden on your family. This isn't a world of participation trophies. It's a world where every mouth needs to be fed, and every hand is needed for the collective effort. The pressure is constant, even if it's unspoken, a subtle hum beneath the surface of daily life. As you grow from a squalling infant into a wobbling toddler, your world becomes less about raw survival and more about understanding the complex web of social expectations that bind Roman society. You are no longer just a small, vulnerable creature. You are a budding member of a household, with specific roles and duties, however minuscule, beginning to form. Imagine the clatter of pots in the small kitchen space, the murmur of adult voices, the ever-present scent of wood smoke, and a faint, lingering aroma of stale urine from the street outside. Your days are not structured around playdates or carefully curated learning experiences. Instead, they unfold organically, dictated by the rhythms of the sun and the needs of your family. You learn by observation, by imitation, and often, by trial and error, with the error part sometimes involving a sharp reprimand. For boys, your path is clearer, though no less demanding. You are being groomed, implicitly, for the world of men. This means understanding the importance of your family's name, of pietas, that deep sense of duty and devotion to your family, the state, and the gods. You might follow your father to the forum, watching him conduct business, observing the intricate dance of social interactions, the subtle power dynamics at play. You learn to listen, to observe, to understand the unwritten rules of negotiation and status. Your father might take you to the public baths, not just for cleanliness, but as a social outing, an early introduction to the public sphere where Roman men conducted much of their lives. You see gladiators training, politicians holding court, merchants haggling. It's a living classroom, loud and chaotic, but utterly immersive. For girls, your path, while equally vital, is different. Your world centers more around the home, the domus. You are being prepared for your future role as a wife and mother, the keeper of the household. You spend your days alongside your mother, your aunts, your older sisters, learning the domestic arts. This isn't just about cooking and cleaning. It's about managing a household, overseeing slaves if your family is wealthy enough to own them, understanding textiles, spinning wool, weaving cloth. You learn about Roman modesty, about the importance of upholding your family's honor through your conduct. Your play often involves dolls, not for idle amusement, but to mimic the rituals of adulthood, preparing you for the responsibility of raising children and managing a domestic sphere. You might even participate in simple religious rituals at the household shrine, offering small prayers or gifts to the lares and penates, the guardian spirits of the home. Of education, when it begins, is not the gentle, nurturing process you might envision today. For most children, especially those from poorer families, formal schooling is a luxury. Learning happens at home, within the family unit. You learn arithmetic for basic transactions, perhaps some rudimentary reading and writing, enough to keep accounts or sign your name. Your teachers are your parents, or perhaps an older, literate relative. The curriculum is entirely practical, focused on skills that will directly contribute to your survival and the family's prosperity. If your family has some means, you might attend a ludus, a basic primary school. Imagine a small, often noisy room, maybe even just a corner of the forum, where a ludi magister schoolmaster holds court. The atmosphere is less about encouraging creativity and more about rote memorization and strict discipline. You sit on a simple stool or on the ground, perhaps with a wax tablet and stylus, or a roll of papyrus if you are truly privileged. You practice writing out letters, syllables, and simple words. Arithmetic involves counting on your fingers, using an abacus, and mastering basic calculations for trade and daily life. And let's not sugarcoat it. The ludi magister is rarely a figure of gentle encouragement. Discipline is often enforced with a ferula, a cane or rod, or a scutica, a leather whip. Imagine the sting of a sharp whack on your palm for a misspelled word or a botched sum. This isn't just a threat, it's a common reality. You learn not out of intellectual curiosity, but out of fear of punishment. Knowledge is power takes on a very literal meaning here. Mistakes have immediate, painful consequences. There's no discussion of learning styles, no individual attention. It's a learn it or feel the stick approach. For boys from wealthier families, education extends beyond the ludus. You might move on to a grammaticus, where you delve deeper into Latin and Greek literature, studying the great poets like Virgil and Homer. You learn rhetoric, the art of persuasive speaking, which is essential for a career in politics or law. This is where you truly start to absorb the intellectual heritage of Rome, the philosophies, the historical narratives, the moral codes embedded in their literature. This level of education is a clear indicator of status, preparing you for a life of public service, military command, or philosophical contemplation. And even here, the stick is never far away. A Roman education is about forging character through rigorous training, both mental and physical. Girls from affluent families might also receive an education, though typically at home with private tutors or their mothers. They might learn to read and write, to play musical instruments like the lyre, and to manage complex household accounts. While their education focuses on preparing them for their roles as wives of influential men, it's not to be underestimated. A well-educated Roman woman could be a significant intellectual force within her own sphere, advising her husband, managing vast estates, and even engaging in scholarly pursuits. However, their public role remained limited, their influence primarily exerted behind the scenes. One of the more unique, and frankly, somewhat horrifying, aspects of Roman education, even at higher levels, was the emphasis on public performance. You would be expected to recite long passages of poetry or prose from memory, often before an audience. Imagine the pressure, the sheer terror, of standing before your peers and your demanding teacher, knowing that any stumble, any forgotten word, could result in immediate public humiliation and a potential beating. This wasn't about building self-esteem, it was about building resilience, developing a strong memory, and performing under extreme duress. You learn to project your voice, to control your nerves, skills that would serve you well whether you became a politician, a lawyer, or simply a respected head of a household. Remember the strict adherence to pietas we mentioned? This isn't just about devotion to family, it extends to the gods. From a young age, you are immersed in Roman religion. You participate in household rituals, offering small libations of wine or pinches of incense to the lares and penates at the household shrine. You learn about the vast pantheon of Roman gods, Jupiter, Juno, Mars, Venus, each with their own domain, their own stories, and their own demands. You understand that appeasing the gods is crucial for good fortune, for a bountiful harvest, for victory in battle, even for a safe journey. Religious festivals are integrated into the fabric of daily life, offering rare moments of public celebration and communal participation. You might witness animal sacrifices, elaborate processions, and the solemn pronouncements of priests. It's a world where the divine is ever present, interwoven with every aspect of your existence. This constant reinforcement of duty, discipline, and divine reverence shapes your worldview. You are taught to be practical, stoic, and self-reliant. There's little room for introspection or existential angst. Your purpose is clear: to contribute to your family, to uphold Roman values, and to honor the gods. It's a tough school, this Roman life, and every day is another lesson in resilience. And speaking of resilience, remember those children who were exposed at birth? Well, some were rescued and raised as slaves. Historians still debate whether a child exposed and then rescued was considered legally free or automatically a slave? The answer likely depended on the specific circumstances and the laws of the time. It's a stark reminder of the fragile line between freedom and bondage in this unforgiving society. You might occasionally see a public spectacle, perhaps a procession of soldiers returning from a campaign, or a grand religious festival. These are moments of awe and wonder, brief respites from the monotony and hardship of daily life. You might catch a glimpse of the emperor, if you live in Rome, or a prominent senator, their power and prestige radiating from their elaborate attire and retinue. These glimpses reinforce the social hierarchy, showing you where you stand and where you might aspire to be, if fate and fortune smile upon you. But mostly, your world is small, confined to your immediate neighborhood, your family, and the daily grind of survival and education. As you move past the tender years of infancy and into childhood proper, the concept of play, as you understand it today, is a fleeting luxury, often intertwined with the harsh realities of ancient Roman life. There are no brightly colored plastic slides, no organized sports leagues, no dedicated play zones. Your playground is the bustling street, the uneven cobblestones, the very environment that also serves as your classroom, your marketplace, and sometimes your battleground. Imagine scuttling through the narrow, crowded alleyways, the air thick with the smell of unwashed bodies, charcoal smoke, and the ever-present, pungent aroma of refuse. You might join other children in impromptu games of knucklebones, using the dried ankle bones of sheep or goats, throwing them like dice or stacking them in pyramids. It's a simple game, requiring a surprising amount of dexterity and a good eye. And it teaches you about probability and quick decision-making, skills that, while seemingly trivial in play, translate directly into the realities of daily life where quick wits can mean the difference between getting a good bargain and being swindled. You might also play with terracotta dolls, crudely fashioned but cherished, dressing them in scraps of fabric or staging elaborate domestic scenes. For boys, there might be miniature chariots or toy soldiers, carved from wood or cast in bronze if your family has means. These aren't just for idle amusement. They are, in a subtle way, training. Playing with toy soldiers helps you understand basic formations, the concept of command, and the glory associated with the Roman legions. Racing miniature chariots instills a sense of competition and a fascination with the grand spectacle of the Circus Maximus. Even simple games like hoops, rolling a metal or wooden ring with a stick, develop coordination and stamina, traits valued in a society that admires physical prowess. But play is never truly separate from purpose. Even when you're seemingly just having fun, you're learning. You learn to negotiate with other children for resources, a particularly good set of knucklebones, the best stick for your hoop. You learn to share, to take turns, to resolve conflicts without adult intervention, because adults are too busy with their own struggles for survival to mediate childish squabbles. You learn the social dynamics of your peer group, who to trust, who to avoid, who is strong, and who is weak. These are crucial social intelligence skills, honed on the unforgiving streets of Rome. Perhaps you spend your leisure time mimicking adults, a form of play that is deeply instructive. Girls might pretend to manage a household, scolding imaginary slaves or bargaining for goods in a make-believe market. Boys might reenact senatorial debates, delivering fiery speeches to an unseen crowd, or drilling their toy legions. This isn't just imitation, it's a form of active learning, internalizing the roles and responsibilities that await you as an adult. You are, in essence, rehearsing for your future. One of the less charming aspects of your Roman childhood playtime might involve animal sports. Often informal and unsupervised, catching lizards, chasing stray dogs, or observing cockfights could be common diversions, reflecting a society where the line between entertainment and brutality was often blurred. There's a certain hardening that occurs when you witness such things from a young age, a desensitization to the harshness of the world around you. As for organized sports for children, They are virtually non-existent in the modern sense. While physical training is important, especially for boys from wealthier families who might receive instruction in wrestling, running, or swimming, these activities are more about developing physical fitness for military service or public life than about recreation. You wouldn't find dedicated children's sports leagues or weekend tournaments. Physical activity is simply part of life, often tied to chores, apprenticeships, or the demands of daily survival. If you're a young boy, you might join in with older boys practicing military drills with wooden swords, learning the basic movements and commands, imagining yourself as a future legionary, bringing glory to Rome. The concept of a childhood as a protected, carefree period of development is largely foreign. From a very young age, your value is intrinsically linked to your ability to contribute to the household. If you are from a poor family, your play might be interspersed with chores fetching water from the public fountain, gathering firewood, tending to younger siblings, running errands for your parents. These aren't just chores in the modern sense. They are essential contributions to the family's survival. You become an extra pair of hands, an extra set of eyes, an extra body to carry burdens. Imagine lugging heavy amphorae of water, the rough ceramic digging into your small hands, the weight pulling at your undeveloped muscles. Or perhaps you're tasked with scavenging for edible scraps in the market after the main business hours, competing with stray dogs and other desperate souls. These aren't just activities. They are physical and mental trials, teaching you resilience, resourcefulness, and the hard truth about your place in the economic pecking order. Children also frequently served as apprentices, starting at a remarkably young age. If your father is a baker, you're in the bakery, learning to knead dough, tend the oven, and haggle with customers. If he's a blacksmith, you're pounding metal, learning the rhythm of the hammer, the glow of the forge. Girls might apprentice with their mothers in weaving, pottery, or preparing food. There's no formal contract, no set hours in the modern sense. You learn by doing, by watching, by repeating, often for long, exhausting hours. Your education is practical, direct, and entirely vocational, geared towards securing your future livelihood. One interesting, though often overlooked, aspect of Roman childhood play and learning is the use of pets. While not all families could afford them, dogs, cats, though less common and often serving practical pest control, and even birds were kept as companions. Playing with a dog, teaching it tricks, or simply having a loyal companion in a harsh world could offer moments of genuine warmth and uncomplicated joy. These pets, simple as they were, might have provided a crucial emotional outlet in a society that didn't prioritize outward displays of affection or emotional support for children. Historians still debate the true emotional bond between Roman children and their pets. Was it purely utilitarian, or did it mirror the affectionate relationships we see today? The harshness of Roman child labor is a stark contrast to modern sensibilities. You are not seen as a vulnerable individual needing protection, but as a potential asset, a future worker. The concept of childhood innocence as a sacred state is largely absent. You are expected to mature quickly, to understand the responsibilities that will soon be thrust upon you. This early immersion in work, while undoubtedly difficult, also instills a profound sense of self-reliance and the value of hard work. You learn that survival is earned, not given. You might see other children, even younger than yourself, working alongside you. Perhaps they are the children of slaves, forced into labor from their very first steps, their entire lives predetermined by their birth. Or perhaps they are orphans, struggling to survive by begging or performing small, menial tasks. These encounters serve as constant reminders of the precariousness of life, even for those born free. It reinforces the idea that hard work is not merely an option, but a necessity to avoid falling into even deeper destitution. The constant sight of poverty and hardship around you, even if you are not experiencing the absolute worst of it, undoubtedly shapes your perspective, hardening you to the realities of the Roman world. The rumble of cartwheels on the cobblestones, the distant shouts from the forum, the ever-present hum of a city teeming with life. These are the constant background noises of your childhood. But beneath that external cacophony lies an even more fundamental concern: the gnawing, persistent reality of food and the terrifying consequences of its absence. For you, a child in ancient Rome, every meal is a minor victory. Every day without hunger pangs a blessing. Imagine your stomach, small and often empty, aching with a dull throb. This isn't the occasional hunger of a missed snack. It's a deeper, more primal ache, a constant companion for many. Your diet is simple, dictated by what's cheap, available, and, frankly, filling. Grain is king. You consume it in the form of coarse bread, a staple at nearly every meal. This isn't the soft, fluffy white bread you might know. It's dense, often dark, made from wheat or barley, sometimes mixed with legumes. It's hard work to chew, but it provides the essential calories to fuel your small working body. Beyond bread, your meals are built around pulses, lentils, chickpeas, beans often made into thick, hearty stews or porridges. Vegetables, if available and in season, might include cabbage, onions, leeks, or lettuce. You rarely see meat. It's a luxury, reserved for special occasions, religious festivals, or the tables of the very wealthy. If you do get meat, it's likely pork, perhaps some salted fish if you live near the coast, or, for the truly desperate, whatever small animals you might manage to catch. Fruits, like apples, figs, grapes, and dates, offer a welcome sweetness, but they too are seasonal and can be expensive. For a child like you, the sweetness of a ripe fig is a rare treat, savored slowly, its rich flavor a fleeting moment of pure delight. You learn to appreciate every bite, every scrap, because waste is simply not an option. Food is precious, a commodity constantly pursued and fiercely guarded. Now, let's talk about water. Forget sparkling clean tap water. Your water comes from public fountains, delivered via lead pipes. Yes, lead. A silent poison that historians still debate the long-term health effects of on the Roman population. This water, while generally better than stagnant sources, isn't purified. It carries whatever impurities and microorganisms it picks up along its journey. You learn to drink quickly, to be grateful for its coolness on a hot day, and to ignore the occasional sediment at the bottom of your cup. Wine, often diluted with water, is also a common drink, even for children, as the fermentation process makes it safer to consume than plain water in many instances. The very act of eating is a communal, often messy affair. There are no individual plates or cutlery as you know them. You eat with your hands, scooping up your portion from a communal bowl. Table manners are less about delicate etiquette and more about ensuring everyone gets their share and nothing goes to waste. You learn to eat quickly, to be alert, to ensure you get enough before the food disappears. It's a subtle but constant competition for sustenance. And then there's the filth. Imagine stepping outside your modest dwelling and immediately being assaulted by the smells and sights of a densely populated city with rudimentary sanitation. Human and animal waste often collects in the streets, either because public latrines are distant or too full, or simply due to indifference. The air is thick with flies, buzzing around mounds of refuse, decaying food scraps, and the general detritus of daily life. Public latrines, while a marvel of Roman engineering, are not exactly clean. They are communal, often without privacy, and their stench can be overwhelming. Waste might flow through open sewers, eventually emptying into the Tiber River or other waterways, which also serve as sources of water for some. This constant proximity to filth means that disease is an ever-present threat. You are, quite literally, living amidst a breeding ground for sickness. Your understanding of medicine is, by modern standards, rudimentary at best. There are no antibiotics, no vaccines. Illness is often attributed to bad luck, the displeasure of the gods, or imbalances in the body's humors. When you get sick, it's often a frightening experience. A simple fever can escalate quickly, A common cold can turn into a deadly pneumonia. Diarrhea, caused by contaminated food or water, can rapidly lead to dehydration and death, especially in small, vulnerable bodies like yours. You've probably seen friends, siblings, or neighbors succumb to illnesses that today would be easily treated. This constant presence of death makes you acutely aware of your own fragility. One grim but fascinating detail of Roman urban life, directly impacting your health, is the phenomenon of public baths. While seemingly promoting hygiene, these communal bathing complexes, though impressive, could also be breeding grounds for disease. Imagine dipping into water that countless others have bathed in, or sharing a strigil, a curved metal tool used to scrape oil and dirt from the skin that hasn't been properly cleaned. While Romans certainly valued cleanliness by their own standards, their understanding of germ theory was non-existent. You might emerge from the baths feeling refreshed, but unknowingly carrying a host of unseen pathogens. Historians still debate the extent to which Roman public health practices, like their baths and aqueducts, genuinely improved or sometimes inadvertently worsened public health outcomes. Rats and mice are omnipresent, scurrying through the shadows, attracted by the abundant waste. These vermin carry diseases, fleas, and other parasites, further contributing to the unsanitary conditions. Fleas and lice are a common nuisance, causing constant itching and discomfort. You learn to simply endure it, scratching discreetly, aware that battling these tiny tormentors is an endless, losing fight. The smells of the city are a constant assault on your senses, the sweet, cloying odor of human waste, the sharp tang of cheap wine, the earthy smell of damp soil mixed with garbage, the smoky aroma of cooking fires. You become accustomed to it, but it's a part of the underlying stress of daily life, a persistent reminder of the less-than-ideal conditions you inhabit. Your senses are constantly on high alert, processing this raw, unfiltered input. Despite the hardships, life finds a way. Children, like hardy weeds, sprout and grow even in the most challenging environments. You learn to be resourceful, to find clean water sources when possible, to avoid particularly foul-smelling areas. You develop a tough, resilient immune system, honed by constant exposure to pathogens. You learn to live with the discomfort, to simply endure, a characteristic trait that defines much of Roman existence. It's a stark world, yes, but it's the only world you know. And you adapt, always adapting, always striving for that next meal, that next day of relative health. Beyond the daily quest for sustenance and the relentless onslaught of unsanitary conditions, your existence as a child in ancient Rome is defined by the inescapable reality of work. Childhood, as a prolonged period of leisure and learning, is a concept largely alien to your world. From a surprisingly early age, you become a cog in the economic machine of your household, your small hands and growing strength put to use in the ceaseless effort to survive and, perhaps, to prosper. Imagine waking before dawn, not to the gentle chimes of an alarm clock, but to the first faint light filtering through a small window, or the sounds of your parents already stirring. There's no dawdling, no leisurely breakfast. Your day begins with immediate tasks. If your family is involved in agriculture, you might be out in the fields, even as a very young child, helping to weed, scare away birds, or gather small bundles of kindling. The sun beats down on your neck, the dust clings to your skin, and your muscles ache with an unfamiliar soreness. This isn't just about contributing. It's about learning the rhythms of the seasons, the demands of the land, and the relentless effort required to coax food from the earth. If you live in a city, your tasks are different, but no less demanding. Perhaps your family runs a small shop. You're there, standing on a wooden crate to reach the counter, learning to weigh goods, to count coins, to hawk wares to passers-by. You learn the art of the bargain, the subtle cues of a potential customer, and the importance of a keen eye to prevent theft. You hear the endless chatter of commerce, the shouts of vendors, the haggling over prices. and you absorb it all, slowly becoming a part of this vibrant, cutthroat economic landscape. Your voice, though small, learns to project, to compete with the din of the market. For boys, the path often leads to an apprenticeship. This isn't a formalized, certificate-based program. It's an informal, hands-on education in a specific craft or trade. If your father is a blacksmith, you are in the forge, observing, then gradually being given small tasks. You learn to tend the fire, to hammer hot metal, to shape and mold it. The heat is intense, the noise deafening, and sparks fly dangerously close to your face. But you learn to respect the power of the forge, the skill of the craftsman, and the satisfaction of creating something tangible with your own hands. You learn patience, precision, and the sheer endurance required to work with such unforgiving materials. Perhaps your family works in construction. You might be carrying buckets of mortar, stacking bricks, or helping to clear rubble. The work is physically taxing, requiring strength and stamina beyond your years. You learn about Roman engineering, the sheer scale of their ambition, and the collective human effort required to build their monumental structures. Every stone laid, every wall raised, is a testament to countless hours of backbreaking labor, much of it done by small hands like yours. For girls, your work is primarily centered around the household. This doesn't mean less demanding. If your family has no slaves, every task falls to the women and girls. You learn to grind grain into flour, a laborious process using heavy stone querns that can take hours. You tend to the cooking fire, preparing simple meals, learning the properties of different herbs and vegetables. You are constantly engaged in cleaning, sweeping dirt floors, washing clothes in public laundries, filling establishments, or at home. The sheer physicality of these daily chores is immense, building strength and resilience. One particularly demanding domestic task is textile production. From a young age, you might be taught to spin wool into thread using a spindle and distaff. This requires a delicate touch and endless patience. Then, you move on to weaving, often on an upright loom, meticulously interlacing threads to create fabric for clothing or household use. This isn't just a hobby, it's a vital economic activity. The cloth you produce could be used by your family or sold to supplement income. It's a tedious, repetitive, but essential skill. And it reinforces the idea that your contributions are directly linked to your family's well-being. Consider the simple act of fetching water. This isn't as easy as turning on a tap. You might have to walk a considerable distance to a public fountain, carrying heavy ceramic jars back and forth, often multiple times a day. This physical exertion, day in and day out, builds strength and endurance, but it also takes its toll on young bodies, potentially leading to long-term physical strain. Historians still debate the exact impact of such daily physical labor on the long-term health and growth of Roman children. Did it lead to stronger adults? Or contribute to higher rates of injury and early wear and tear? Children from the poorest families, or those who are orphaned, often resort to begging or performing small, informal tasks for meager compensation. You might see them selling small trinkets, holding horses, or simply holding out a hand, their faces etched with hunger and desperation. This constant exposure to extreme poverty serves as a harsh reminder of your own precarious position, fueling your drive to work and contribute, to avoid falling into such dire straits. Even the concept of school, for many children, is intertwined with work. As mentioned before, formal schooling is a luxury. If you do attend a ludus, your day isn't just about learning letters, it's about learning the practical skills of literacy and numeracy that will enable you to function in the Roman economy. Your education is vocational, preparing you directly for a life of labor, whether it be in a shop, a field, or a craft. There are no child labor laws, no unions protecting your rights. Your worth is measured by your utility, by what you can contribute. This early immersion in the world of work fosters a profound sense of responsibility and self-reliance. You learn the value of a solid day's work, the satisfaction of a task completed, and the direct link between effort and survival. There is little room for frivolousness. Every action, every hour, is implicitly or explicitly linked to the family's well-being. And occasionally, amidst the drudgery, you might encounter a moment of unexpected joy or a small triumph. Perhaps you successfully negotiate a slightly better price for your family's wares at the market, or you perfectly spin a difficult length of wool. These small victories are deeply satisfying, providing a brief flicker of pride in a life often devoid of grand celebrations. They are the tiny personal rewards for your unwavering perseverance in a world that demands so much, so early. No matter how diligent you are, how hard you work, or how resourceful your family might be, the specter of sickness looms large over every moment of your childhood in ancient Rome. This isn't just the occasional cold or flu, it's a constant, terrifying dance with unseen enemies. Microscopic invaders that can swiftly turn a vibrant child into a pale, struggling shadow. Imagine the oppressive heat of summer, or the damp chill of winter, settling into your small bones. You might feel a dull ache in your head, a slight nausea, or a persistent cough. These seemingly minor symptoms, which today would barely warrant a second thought, are a source of profound dread in your world. Why? Because you understand, intuitively, that your body is a fragile vessel, and there is little, truly little, that can be done once illness takes hold. Your understanding of the human body and disease is rudimentary at best, steeped in a blend of observation, tradition, and superstition. Illness is often attributed to the displeasure of the gods, to evil spirits, or to an imbalance of the four humors: blood, yellow bile, black bile, and phlegm. There's no germ theory, no concept of viruses or bacteria. So, when you fall ill, the first instinct might be to offer prayers to the gods, to visit a temple, or to seek out a priest or a local folk healer who might perform rituals or offer charms. If you're lucky, your family might consult a physician. But don't picture a modern doctor in a sterile clinic. A Roman physician, or medicus, might have received some training, often from Greek traditions, but their knowledge is limited by the technology and understanding of their time. They might examine you, feel your pulse, ask about your symptoms. Their treatments could involve herbal remedies, poultices, purges, or bloodletting, practices that, while sometimes having a basis in natural medicine, could just as often be ineffective or even harmful. Imagine being a small child, weak with fever, and having a bitter-tasting concoction forced down your throat, or worse, witnessing a cut being made in your arm to bleed out the bad humors. The experience is terrifying, and the relief, if it comes, is often slow and uncertain. Recovery isn't guaranteed, even from what we would consider minor ailments. A simple infection, a scraped knee, could turn deadly without the aid of antibiotics. Infectious diseases are rampant. Measles, mumps, smallpox, dysentery, malaria. These are not distant threats. They are common killers of children. You've probably witnessed other children, perhaps siblings or neighbors, succumb to these illnesses. You see them weaken, their bodies racked with fever, their breathing shallow, until finally, they stop breathing altogether. Death, especially of children, is a tragically common occurrence, a stark fact of life that you learn to accept with a stoic resignation. There is little time for prolonged grieving. Life simply continues, demanding the attention of the living. Consider the role of hygiene again, or rather, the lack of it. The public latrines, the uncollected waste in the streets, the communal water sources, all contribute to a constant cycle of contagion. You might step in human waste on the street, then touch your face. You might drink water contaminated by sewage, flies, buzzing everywhere. Carry disease from one person to another, from refuse pile to your food. It's an invisible battlefield, and your small body is constantly fighting for its life against an overwhelming enemy. Even something as common as parasites is a constant companion. Worms, fleas, lice, they infest bodies, clothing, and homes. The constant itching, the discomfort, the drainage of vital nutrients by internal parasites, all contribute to a weakened state, making you more susceptible to other, more serious illnesses. You simply learn to live with them, scratching an itch discreetly, knowing that complete eradication is almost impossible. One fascinating historical debate revolves around the Romans' understanding of illness. While they didn't grasp germ theory, some Roman writers did connect polluted air miasma or swampy areas with disease. Galen, a prominent Roman physician, despite his theoretical limitations, emphasized the importance of diet, exercise, and cleanliness. Yet, his ideas, and the practical application of them, were inconsistent and often limited to the wealthy. Historians still debate whether public works like aqueducts, while providing fresh water, genuinely reduce disease rates, or if the dense urban living and limited personal hygiene practices negated many of the benefits. When a child dies, the grief, while undoubtedly present, is often tempered by the sheer frequency of such events. There isn't the same emphasis on prolonged mourning or elaborate funerals for young children as there might be for adults. The body might be quickly prepared, perhaps wrapped in a simple shroud, and buried in a family tomb or a common burial ground. You might see a small, rough stone marker, or nothing at all. To mark the brief passage of a child's life, this constant presence of death, this familiar farewell, hardens you. You learn to steel yourself against sorrow, to accept the fragility of existence, and to carry on. The nights can be particularly terrifying when sickness strikes. You might lie awake, listening to your own ragged breathing, or the labored cough of a sibling. The darkness amplifies every ache, every tremor. There are no soothing words from a medical professional, no comforting remedies to bring immediate relief. You simply endure, hoping that your body is strong enough, that the gods are merciful enough to see you through to another dawn. This raw, visceral struggle with illness is a profound part of your Roman childhood, shaping your resilience and your understanding of life's precariousness. Beyond the constant threat of disease and the relentless demands of daily labor, another chilling reality casts a long, inescapable shadow over your Roman childhood: the institution of slavery. It's not a distant concept or a historical anomaly you read about in books. It's a living, breathing, often brutal part of the fabric of your society. You witness it every day, in various forms. A stark reminder of the fragile line between freedom and absolute subjugation. Imagine walking through the bustling Roman Forum or simply down your street. You see people like you, but fundamentally different. They are dressed simply, perhaps in coarse tunics, their movements often deferential, their eyes avoiding direct contact. These are slaves. They are everywhere, working in shops, tending to the needs of wealthy households, toiling in the fields outside the city, or performing dangerous labor in mines and quarries. You learn from a very young age that while you are free, their lives are not their own. For a child like you, the presence of slaves is simply a fact of life. You might grow up in a household that owns slaves, even a modest one. If so, they are part of your daily landscape. They cook your food, clean your home, carry your water, perhaps even act as your nursemaid or tutor. You learn to give them commands, to expect obedience, and to understand that their status is inherently beneath yours. This teaches you a profound, if uncomfortable, lesson about hierarchy and power. You see the power your parents wield over these individuals, a power that is absolute, extending even to life and death. You might see a slave being disciplined, perhaps whipped for a perceived transgression. The sounds of the lash, the cries of pain, these are not hidden away. They are part of the public spectacle, a brutal lesson in the consequences of disobedience. It's a chilling experience, burning into your young mind the reality that their bodies, their very lives, are not their own, but property. This raw display of power, though horrifying, serves to reinforce the rigid social order and your own relative privilege. The methods by which people become slaves are varied and often tragic. Many are prisoners of war, captured during Rome's incessant military campaigns, brought back in chains, and sold in public slave markets. Imagine the horror of being a child watching these auctions, seeing individuals, perhaps families, paraded like livestock, their bodies inspected, their strengths and weaknesses discussed, before being sold to the highest bidder. You see the despair in their eyes, the silent plea for mercy, and you understand that this could, theoretically, be your fate if Rome were ever conquered. Others might be victims of piracy, kidnapped from their homes and sold into bondage. Some are born into slavery known as vernae, their mothers having been slaves, meaning their entire existence is predetermined from birth. These vernae are often treated with a degree of leniency, sometimes even affection, especially if they are house slaves and grow up alongside the freeborn children. Yet, they remain property, their freedom always just beyond reach. Historians still debate the emotional complexity of these relationships between vernae and the freeborn children they often played with. Was there genuine affection despite the vast power imbalance? Or was it always overshadowed by the master-slave dynamic? You might also see the desperate consequences of poverty. Some Romans, unable to pay their debts, might sell themselves or their children into debt bondage to survive. This is a particularly harrowing sight, as it demonstrates the razor-thin margin between freedom and enslavement, a line that can be crossed by economic misfortune. It further underscores the constant economic pressure on your own family, a silent push to work harder, to contribute more, to avoid such a grim fate. The daily work of a slave is often relentless and brutal. In the mines, they face backbreaking labor and suffocating conditions, often dying young. In the agricultural estates, latifundia, they toil under the scorching sun, driven by overseers. In the cities, they might perform domestic chores, manage businesses for their masters, or engage in skilled crafts. Some, if highly educated, might serve as scribes, accountants, or even teachers. A curious paradox of intelligence subjugated by status. One of the more unique aspects you might observe is the way Romans tried to control slaves, not just through physical force, but through psychological means. Slaves were often forbidden from marrying or owning property, though sometimes a peculium, a small allowance or fund, might be granted, allowing a slave to save money and, very rarely, buy their freedom. The hope of manumission, of gaining freedom, was a powerful motivator, offering a glimmer of light in an otherwise dark existence. You might hear stories of slaves who achieved manumission, either by their master's will, through loyal service, or by purchasing their freedom. These stories are rare, but they serve as a testament to the enduring human desire for liberty. The sheer numbers are staggering. At the height of the Roman Empire, slaves might have constituted a significant portion of the population in some areas, particularly in Italy. This means your world is literally built upon the backs of unfree labor. The roads you walk on, the buildings you see, the food you eat. Much of it is the product of slave labor. This reality, while perhaps unexamined by your young mind, is deeply embedded in the social and economic fabric of your society. You also learn, implicitly, about the subtle acts of resistance, not overt rebellion, which is rare and brutally suppressed, but small. Everyday acts feigned incompetence, slowing down work, pilfering small items. These are the quiet ways in which the enslaved assert a tiny measure of control in a life where control is systematically denied. You observe these things, perhaps without fully understanding them, but they register nonetheless, adding to your complex picture of the world. Your childhood, therefore, is spent in the shadow of this pervasive institution. It teaches you about power, about injustice, and about the harsh realities of a society built on the labor of others. It shapes your understanding of freedom, making you cherish your own, however precarious it might sometimes feel. And even as you play your games and learn your lessons, the silent, often suffering, presence of the enslaved is a constant, undeniable backdrop to your Roman life. The relentless march of time in ancient Rome is not marked by birthday cakes and elaborate celebrations of childhood milestones. Instead, it's measured by increasing responsibility, by the gradual, often abrupt, shedding of childish things, and by the undeniable approach of adulthood. For you, this transition isn't a leisurely journey, it's a swift induction into a world of predetermined roles and serious burdens, often happening at an age we would still consider barely out of elementary school. Imagine waking one morning and realizing that the simple tunic you've worn for years, the one that marked you as a child, feels different. For a Roman boy, the most significant rite of passage is the toga virilis ceremony, the toga of manhood. This typically happens around your 14th or 15th birthday. Though it can vary, on this momentous day, usually in the presence of your family and friends, you formally put aside your bulla, that protective locket you've worn since infancy. You dedicate it to the household gods, symbolizing your transition from the vulnerable state of childhood to the relative autonomy of adulthood. Then, you exchange your toga praetexta, the toga with the purple border, worn by freeborn children and magistrates for the plain white toga virilis or toga pura. This isn't just a change of clothes, it's a profound declaration. You are now considered a man, a citizen, eligible to vote if your family is of sufficient status and you are of the correct age, to enter public life, and eventually, to serve in the legions. The ceremony might involve a procession to the forum, where you are formally registered as a citizen. It's a moment of immense pride, but also of daunting responsibility. The weight of your new toga feels heavy, imbued with the expectations of Roman society. You are no longer just a child, you are a man, with all the duties and pressures that entail. For a Roman girl, the transition to adulthood is equally significant, though often more private and centered around marriage. This typically occurs even earlier than for boys, sometimes as young as 12 or 14, though custom varied. Imagine being a girl on the cusp of puberty, suddenly faced with the prospect of leaving your familiar household to become a wife and, almost immediately, a mother. Marriage in Rome isn't primarily about romantic love. It's a strategic alliance, a way to forge connections between powerful families, to secure property, or to produce legitimate heirs. Your parents, especially your paterfamilias, arrange your marriage, often with little input from you. On your wedding day, you would put aside your childhood toys, dedicating them to the household gods, along with your bulla if you wore one. Though this was less common for girls than boys, your hair might be styled in a special way, perhaps parted with a spear and bound with ribbons. You wear a white tunic and a flame-colored veil flammeum. The ceremony itself is a mix of rituals, a symbolic capture, a joining of hands, the exchange of vows, and a feast. Then, often in a torchlit procession, you are led from your father's house to your new husband's home, where you are formally welcomed. You are now a materfamilias in training, the mistress of a new household, with the immense responsibility of managing it and raising children. This transition for both boys and girls is not merely symbolic, it's a direct plunge into the responsibilities of adulthood. For boys, this might mean beginning a military career, joining the ranks of a legion, or starting a public career, perhaps as a junior clerk or assistant to a magistrate. You are expected to contribute immediately, to uphold your family's honor, and to participate in the civic and military life of Rome. There's little room for continued youthful folly. For girls, the immediate expectation is to conceive and bear children. Fertility is highly valued, and the pressure to produce male heirs is immense. Childbirth is incredibly dangerous in ancient Rome, with high mortality rates for both mothers and infants. So, while you might be celebrated as a young bride, you are also immediately thrust into a perilous and demanding role. Your body, barely out of childhood, is expected to endure the immense strain of pregnancy and labor repeatedly. Historians still debate the average number of pregnancies a Roman woman might experience, and the toll this took on their bodies. This rapid transition means that many aspects of your childhood are left behind, often abruptly. The games, the relatively carefree days if such a thing truly existed, the primary focus on basic learning, all are replaced by the serious demands of adult life. You are expected to demonstrate maturity, stoicism, and a deep understanding of your social obligations. The Roman emphasis on gravitas seriousness and virtus manly virtue means that emotional displays are often frowned upon, and a certain hardened resilience is expected. You might look back at your childhood with a strange mix of nostalgia and relief. The harsh lessons, the constant struggle for sustenance, the omnipresent threat of disease, the shadow of slavery, these were the crucibles that forged you. They taught you resilience, resourcefulness, and a profound appreciation for the precariousness of life. You are now an adult, a part of the vast, complex tapestry of Roman society, and your individual story is now interwoven with the grand narrative of the empire. Your survival, against such odds, is a testament not just to luck, but to the deep, ingrained strength you developed as a child in this demanding world. The playful innocence of childhood, if it ever truly existed, is now a distant memory, replaced by the weight of adult responsibilities and the relentless demands of Roman life. Having navigated the treacherous waters of infancy, the rigorous lessons of early education, the stark realities of play and labor, and the ever-present threat of sickness, you stand now as an adult in ancient Rome. Your journey has been a testament to resilience, a masterclass in adaptation, and a living embodiment of the human spirit's capacity to endure. The hardships you faced as a child weren't just isolated incidents. They were the very forge in which your character was hammered and shaped, preparing you for the relentless demands of Roman life. Imagine looking back at your own brief childhood. The memories tinged with the dust of busy streets, the distant cries of market vendors, and the faint, persistent scent of wood smoke and damp earth. You survived the initial judgment of your paterfamilias, a silent but profound decree that allowed you to live. This alone was a victory in a world where infant exposure was a chillingly common practice. Many of your tiny contemporaries, those fragile beings who shared your initial breath, did not make it past that first perilous year, succumbing to disease or the elements. You, however, did. You learned to eat what was available, to be grateful for simple grains and pulses, to endure the gnawing pangs of hunger that were a constant companion for many. You grew up amidst the very real dangers of unsanitary conditions, the open sewers, the contaminated water, the ever-present threat of pestilence carried by flies and vermin. Your body, through sheer force of will and perhaps a bit of luck, developed a hardy immune system, fighting off illnesses that would easily claim the less fortunate. You bear the subtle scars of these battles, perhaps a persistent cough from a childhood lung infection, or a dull ache in your joints from endless hours of labor. Your education, whether formal in a ludus or informal at home, was not about fostering creativity or critical thinking in the modern sense. It was about practical application, rote memorization, and the harsh discipline of the ferula. You learned your letters and numbers not for intellectual curiosity, but to function within the Roman economic machine, to contribute to your family's survival. You learned to obey, to respect authority, and to understand the rigid social hierarchy that governed every aspect of your world. The sting of the cane on your palm taught you about consequences, a lesson swiftly and brutally delivered. Playtime, if you had any, was never truly free of purpose. Your games, whether with knucklebones or toy soldiers, subtly prepared you for the adult world of strategy, competition, and duty. You learned resourcefulness, how to make do with little, and how to navigate the complex social dynamics of your peers without adult intervention. You mimicked the tasks of your elders, rehearsing the roles of a future materfamilias or a Roman citizen, internalizing the expectations of your predetermined path. You entered the workforce at an age that would shock modern sensibilities. Whether in the fields, the workshop, or the domestic sphere, your small hands and growing strength were put to immediate use. You carried water, ground grain, spun wool, or learned a trade from dawn till dusk. This early immersion in labor instilled a profound sense of responsibility, a deep understanding of the value of hard work, and the direct link between effort and sustenance. You saw firsthand the stark realities of the Roman economy, where every contribution counted, and idleness was a luxury few could afford. And then there was the chilling presence of slavery, a pervasive backdrop to your entire existence. You witnessed men, women, and even children bought and sold, their lives reduced to mere property. You saw the subtle and overt forms of control, the harsh discipline, and the quiet resilience of the enslaved. This constant exposure taught you about the arbitrary nature of power, the fragility of freedom, and the profound injustice that underpinned much of Roman society. Your own freedom, however limited by social custom and economic circumstance, felt like an invaluable, if precarious, gift. The transition to adulthood wasn't a gradual unfolding. It was a societal declaration. For boys, the toga virilis marked your entry into the world of men, instantly burdening you with civic duties and the potential call to military service. For girls, marriage, often at a shockingly young age, immediately thrust you into the roles of wife and potential mother, with the immense responsibilities of managing a household and bearing children, a perilous endeavor in an age of high mortality. There was no extended adolescence, no period of self-discovery. You simply stepped into the shoes prepared for you by centuries of Roman tradition. Despite the hardships, despite the constant threat of disease, poverty, and subjugation, you survived. You are a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a living echo of the countless Roman children who navigated these same treacherous paths. Your life, though devoid of modern comforts and freedoms, has shaped you into a formidable individual, one hardened by adversity, imbued with a deep sense of duty, and profoundly aware of the preciousness of each fleeting day. This is the legacy of a Roman childhood, a story not of gentle innocence, but of unwavering endurance. Historians still debate whether the Roman emphasis on resilience and duty stemmed primarily from societal conditioning or from the harsh realities of childhood itself, a fascinating chicken or egg question that remains largely open. The sun sets over the Roman landscape, casting long shadows across the Forum, the distant aqueducts, and the cramped insulae where many lives unfold. You stand, now an adult, a product of this unforgiving yet undeniably vibrant world. Your journey, marked by trials and tribulations, has carved within you a resilience that few in the modern era could ever comprehend. This final part of our journey allows us to reflect on the cumulative impact of what it was truly like to be a child in ancient Rome, and how that brutal upbringing forged the very foundation of one of history's most enduring empires. Imagine, for a moment, the quiet moments of your childhood that weren't filled with work or fear. Perhaps a rare hour spent watching sunlight filter through olive trees, the warm scent of the earth after a spring rain, or the simple joy of sharing a piece of fruit with a friend. These fleeting instances of calm and connection were not the norm, but they were the tiny anchors that kept you grounded, the subtle reminders of beauty in a harsh existence. You learned to cherish these small mercies, for they were few and far between. Your senses, honed by constant exposure to the city's raw energy, are now finely tuned. You instinctively identify the distant clang of a blacksmith's hammer, the precise rhythm of a legionary marching drill, the particular aroma of a specific street vendor's stall. These are not just sounds and smells. They are the soundtrack and perfume of your survival, deeply ingrained in your memory. You learn to navigate your world not just by sight, but by an acute awareness of every subtle shift in your environment, a skill born out of necessity, The constant presence of disease, the swiftness with which life could be snatched away, imprinted upon you a profound awareness of mortality. You grew up understanding that life was precarious, a fragile flame that could be extinguished at any moment. This didn't necessarily breed despair. Rather, it often fostered a stoic acceptance, a deep appreciation for the present moment, and a drive to fulfill your duties and live your life with purpose. Knowing that time was not guaranteed, you became adept at grieving swiftly, moving on, because the demands of survival left little room for prolonged sorrow. Think about the physical conditioning your body underwent from an early age. The endless chores, the long walks to fetch water, the physical labor of whatever trade your family pursued, all of this built a core of strength and endurance. You are physically hardy, accustomed to discomfort, and capable of sustained effort. Your body, though perhaps bearing the marks of a demanding life, is a testament to its capacity for adaptation, a living monument to the physical demands of ancient Roman existence. Historians still grapple with whether the physical stresses of Roman childhood contributed to specific growth patterns or skeletal markers that distinguish them from modern populations. Your moral compass was not shaped by abstract philosophy, but by direct observation and harsh consequences. You understood pietas, devotion to family, state, and gods, not as a lofty ideal, but as the bedrock of social order and personal survival. You saw the consequences of disobedience, the rewards of loyalty, and the importance of civic duty. Roman virtues like virtus manly excellence, gravitas seriousness, and fides loyalty were not just words. They were embodied in the actions of the adults around you, and you strove to emulate them, knowing they were essential for success in your society. The stark inequalities, particularly the ubiquity of slavery, instilled in you a complex understanding of power dynamics. While you might not question the morality of the institution itself, you understood its implications that social standing was paramount, that freedom was a precious commodity, and that the world was divided into those who commanded and those who obeyed. This awareness, though unsettling to modern minds, was simply the air you breathed, shaping your interactions and your place within the hierarchy. Your childhood, then, was not a gentle preparation for life. It was life itself, lived at full throttle, from your very first moments. It stripped away any illusions of innocence, replacing them with a keen understanding of reality. It forced you to be self-reliant, resourceful, and incredibly resilient. The Roman citizen, the legionary, the senator, the materfamilias, all were forged in this same crucible, emerging tough, disciplined, and utterly committed to the values that underpinned their civilization. This deep-seated resilience, bred from a childhood of hardship, was undoubtedly a contributing factor to the longevity and strength of the Roman Empire itself. It was a civilization built, quite literally, on the backs of children who grew up fast, learned hard lessons, and embraced their demanding roles with a stoicism that continues to awe us today.